Dallas Cowboys, Detroit Lions, Thursday Night Football, everything you need to know in 15 minutes. If you've never been here before, welcome. My name is Max. I make these for every primetime game as well as every game on Sunday to give you a unique edge, looking at run scheme metrics, coverage data, and overall trends nobody really talks about because it relates to the scheme behind the game instead of just the numbers you see on the screen. Without further ado, let's get into this breakdown. As always, in the description are links to my socials. Make sure you're locked in on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter for some additional content like this. Let's start with the Cowboys defense. The bottom line is they are playing better as of late. The addition of Quinnen Williams has helped them. The return of Demarion Overshown has helped them. Secondary, still leaves a little bit to be desired, but I still think they're playing better holistically. In terms of the data outliers, they are still allowing the most pass yards per game at 269.5 per game across the entire NFL, as well as the most pass touchdowns at 28. We'll talk red zone stuff at the very end. The red zone defense is not good, and when teams are scoring on them, they're throwing the football. They're also allowing the sixth most rush yards per carry. They've been better, a little bit below average, but better against the run in terms of yards per game, but the efficiency numbers still not great. I personally think that's largely because teams just know they have an advantage in the secondary, and now with Williams and Overshown along the defensive line, that advantage is magnified. They're also allowing the fifth most running back receptions and the third most running back receiving yards, partially because you can see down here, they're very zone heavy. They play a ton of zone, and they're also allowing the ninth most wide receiver receptions per game at 12.1 per game. Nothing really stands out defensively for them, but like we talked about, they're very zone heavy. They're top 3 in zone coverage rate, and they run tons of cover too. If you guys watched the breakdown from last week, which if you didn't, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of this stuff. We talked about Jared Goff versus zone, and we got a great look last week versus Green Bay. The bottom line with Goff against zone, it's going to the running back or it's staying on the inside between the hashes. When Amon-Ra St. Brown got hurt, and again, there's no official injury diagnosis right now. It doesn't sound like he's playing. But when Amon-Ra St. Brown got hurt, that changed a little bit with Jameson Williams. Started to throw the ball out wide a little bit more just because he almost had no options. But Gibbs and Montgomery see a huge uptick against zone in terms of how often they're targeted. Jared Goff also thrown to the running back position at a top 5 rate. Now, Sam Laporta, who's out, continues to see a bunch of zone targets, had a great game versus Green Bay week 1, but like we talked about, there was a great look last week versus Green Bay. On this Lions team, like we talked about, Jameson Williams had 10 targets. Again, very, very little that Goff could do in terms of where he had to air the ball out to. But this is the most important thing to me. Tom Kennedy, the guy who stepped up in the slot, was targeted more than Isaac TeSlaa, had more receptions and more yards than Isaac TeSlaa as well. So for me, I think a lot of us are looking at TeSlaa to step up, assuming Amon-Ra St. Brown is out, when in reality, Tom Kennedy's really stepping into that role as the inside guy. It's technically not a short week, right? Because the Lions played last Thursday. Dallas did too. They played last Thursday, so they have a full week to prepare. So I'm not necessarily going to say it's a short week. They won't change much, but I still think Tom Kennedy will be leaning to that guy who's mainly in the slot. And again, Gibbs had 4 targets. Montgomery had 2 targets there. Cowboys are also targeted out of the backfield at a top 3 rate. And it's clear to see these game logs against zone-heavy teams for the Detroit Lions. The running backs are producing a little bit more in the pass game. You have the crazy game week 1 where Gibbs caught 10 balls, Montgomery caught 4. But then across the NFL against other more zone-heavy teams or even middle-field open-heavy teams, there have not been a ton of those opponents, to be honest with you. It was Chicago, Gibbs caught 3 and Montgomery caught 1, so nothing super crazy there. And then Minnesota, Gibbs caught 3, Montgomery caught 2. If you guys watched any of my stuff last year, you know we love David Montgomery against zone, but the snap counts just favor Jahmyr Gibbs so much that we can't lean into that much. But what's really interesting is the Cowboys are barely targeted in the slot. Now, Goff was throwing in the slot at the top 10 rate prior to the Amon-Ra St. Brown injury. Does that change this week? We wait to see. Again, Tom Kennedy took over that role last week. He's bottom 3 in out wide targets. Now, Cowboys out wide and inline, average-ish, give or take a couple spots. But like I said, Goff is also top 3 in running back target rate. I don't want to jinx anything, but this is the perfect running back receiving matchup. No Amon-Ra St. Brown. Running backs will be on the field a little bit more. Maybe even see some more 21 personnel, like more personnel with Gibbs and Montgomery on the field. If I was an offensive coordinator and I didn't have my number 1 wide receiver against a defense that hasn't been great on the ground but struggles against running backs receiving, that's personally what I would do. I really like the running back receiving production in this game, as well as Tom Kennedy. Like, he took over the slot role last week. I know Dallas is barely targeted in the slot, but their secondary still isn't great. In terms of the run scheme metrics, I go back and forth on this. The Lions are zone heavy, but again, they're the best man gap team in the NFL. That's Gibbs. When he has pullers in space, he's following them and he can burst through a hole. The Cowboys are better versus zone. They're worse against man gap, which could lead to some more explosive runs. And straight up, when you just look at the game logs for Jahmyr Gibbs as of late, like this Green Bay defense is very, very good on the ground. He had almost 70 yards, so nothing super crazy. But against a bad run defense in New York, he had 219. Philly's run defense is good. Against a bad run defense, he had 142. Minnesota's run defense is okay. Then Tampa 136. So it's almost every other week this guy's having 100 yards. If you operate along that line, maybe he has 100 yards this week. But this matchup is really good. And again, with no Amon-Ra St. Brown, I feel like he will touch the ball more. I honestly feel like Montgomery will touch the ball more as well. But this is a very, very, very good matchup for Jahmyr Gibbs. I am watching him as well as Tom Kennedy. On the other side, the Lions defense is very good versus the run, but very bad versus the pass. This has been a trend really throughout the entire year, the past 2 years. I thought Aaron Glenn leaving would change what this Lions defense does. Not really. In terms of what they are struggling with, they're allowing the third most pass touchdowns. In terms of pass yards per game, a little bit below average, but not bottom 10, right? They're also allowing 154 wide receiver yards per game. And again, on the ground, they're allowing the 5th fewest rush yards per carry and the 11th fewest rush yards per game. They stop the run, and truthfully, they allow a lot of explosive plays in the pass. You go look at some of these running backs who have gone against them, and they have not played slouches at the position, right? Josh Jacobs last week, probably the best performance I've seen from a running back against this defense in a minute, had 83 yards. He had 83 yards. That's it. Tyrone Tracy carried the ball 20 times for only 62 yards. Saquon Barkley carried the ball 26 times for only 83. You will have to go back to... That's it, actually. There is no 100-yard rusher. Excuse me. There's no 100-yard rusher against this defense. There's not even been a 90-yard rusher against this defense. And the season high is Jacobs at 83, but Saquon at 83 as well. You go to the next highest, it's Judkins when he had 82 yards. Straight up, I don't think the Dallas Cowboys are willing to run the ball that much unless they're blowing them out in this game, which I think is going to be a close game, that they will have Javonte, will have some type of crazy game on the ground. I really don't see that happening. They do have a small edge in terms of scheme. I'll talk about that in a second, but I find it hard to believe that Dallas won't take advantage of them and through the air, especially considering they run the most man in the NFL. They run a ton of middle field close, and they will sell out to stop the run. They'll load the box and they'll make you beat them one-on-one. Now, the interesting thing is you go look at some of the teams the Lions have played the last few weeks, and I truly don't think they've played a team really since Tampa Bay, I guess, that could consistently threaten them in the pass game. I don't think Green Bay could. I don't think the Giants could. Eagles, they weren't playing well. I don't think Washington could with Mariota. I don't think Minnesota could. They very clearly trusted their guys enough. I don't think they trust their DBs enough one-on-one with George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb with Dak Prescott throwing the ball. This is arguably the hottest team in the NFL right now. I think they may run a little less man this week, but you never get away from what you consistently do, and we're going to see a lot of man, I think. Against man, CeeDee Lamb is Dak's favorite target, right? He's leader in target percentage. He's leader in targets per game against man specifically. He also sees the biggest uptick in terms of target percentage against man, where Pickens sees a tiny, tiny one, but he's the most explosive. Leader in yards per out run, leader in yards per catch. He is the big play guy against man, whereas CeeDee Lamb is, it's a 3rd and 7, and we need to get this first down. Dak's going to CD before he goes George Pickens, at least statistically, especially throughout this entire season. In terms of where Dak actually throws the ball, though, he's throwing to the outside at top 5 rate. That's Pickens. That's Pickens' bread and butter, and the Lions are allowing targets out wide at a top 3 rate. So, to me, the marriage is there for Pickens to have some big catches. Like last week, we looked at Christian Watson, to have a great game, but a big catch or two. We saw the big touchdown. That's the potential you have going against this Lions defense. And in terms of where else Dak throws the ball, everything else is below average, right? He's not really throwing to the running back position, not really throwing to the slot, not really throwing to tight end position. Everything is out wide when he gets the chance. It's Pickens and it's CeeDee Lamb on the outside. The Lions are targeted out of the backfield at a bottom 10 rate and tight end at a bottom 3 rate. In the slot, kind of average, but the bottom line with the Lions is they play so much man. Terrion Arnold's banged up. Kirby Joseph is injured. They don't, in my opinion, have the guys to continue to play man. So when they do, teams will take advantage. In terms of the run scheme metrics, the Cowboys, again, are man gap heavy, and they're actually pretty efficient in it. The Lions are noticeably worse against man gap. That is the only thing that makes me think this Cowboys offense might have some success on the ground against the Lions. Schematically, what the Cowboys do matches up really, really, really well with the Lions. It's very, very interesting. It's a small note, but I think it could go a long way. I'm watching both receivers. I'm not looking at Javonte too close. In terms of the red zone edge, I think Detroit has it. Detroit's offense is a little bit better, right? They're scoring 65.22% of the time they're in the red zone. Dallas is scoring 60%, so it's still good. Detroit's just a little bit better. Then defensively, truthfully, both of them are bad, but Dallas is allowing touchdowns on 7 of 10 trips. Detroit's allowing them on 6 of 10 trips, so Detroit's defense a little bit better in the red zone. Detroit has the advantage there. I go back and forth on the line of scrimmage. I still do think it's Detroit because of the run scheme, or the overall rushing production, the run game, ground game advantage. But Dallas is keeping Dak upright, which is really, really important to note. Third fewest sacks allowed per game at 1.4. And when they're getting after the quarterback, it's noticeable that they're above average, and they've been playing better as of late. A 0.4 increase in sacks per game the last 3 weeks. They're above average still. And Detroit's only getting after it 2.7 times, or sacking the quarterback 2.7 times compared to Dallas' 2.3. Whereas Detroit last week against the Packers O-line, that granted did a very good job of protecting Jordan Love, but is really banged up. Like I worry about that. I think, again, it's a small advantage for Detroit, but I do think it's Detroit. But looking at the small advantages and looking at the overall output for what I think this Cowboys pass game can do, how hot they are, how well they're playing, I think Dallas wins this game. I think Dallas upsets Detroit on the road. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new. God bless you guys.